Today we are going to make some sourdough English muffins. Again, sourdough is not as hard as everybody makes it seem like it is. So we're going to start off with about 1 1/4 cup of your sourdough starter. This is just a 1 cup, so I'm just going to go a little bit over. And you can see the starter is much more stringy than the last one. And then we're gonna go in with 1 1/2 cups of milk, which I warmed up a little bit in the microwave. All right, and then you're just gonna mix the starter and the milk together, just kind of whisk it. You can use a fancy sourdough whisk, or you can just use a regular whisk or a fork or whatever, just until it's kind of incorporated. Should look like these. And then we're gonna go in with 2 tablespoons of honey. Remember, we measure with our hearts in this kitchen. Just gonna mix that in. All right, we're also gonna do 1 egg. All right, and now we're gonna have to do 4 1/2 cups of flour. Get the point, 4 1/2 cups. All right, now we got all our flour, and we're gonna do about 1/2 tablespoon of salt. All right, and then just like the regular sourdough, we're just gonna mix it with our whisk until it gets too hard to do that, and then we're gonna do it by hand. All right, so this is what our dough is looking like. Came together in a ball, and we're gonna cover her. And you do one of 2 things. You can leave it on the counter overnight to proof. Otherwise, we're gonna do the 1-day recipe, which is what we're doing today. Also, this recipe goes credit to Miranda again. Love her stuff, love her recipes that I've done so far because they work out really well. And she only uses cups. It's way easier for me. I don't exact measure pretty much anything. So we're gonna cover this and let it sit for an hour, and then we're gonna do stretch and fold. Okay. All right, so this is after 1 hour. See, she's a little puffy. I've already washed my hands, but we're gonna do a set of stretch and fold. So you literally stretch and fold it over. You can put a little water on your hands too for the stickiness. Stretch and fold it over. Stretch, fold. Stretch, fold. All right, so I went ahead and just kind of flipped her butt crack side down. And then we're just gonna cover her with our shower cap again. And then leave her on the counter for another 30 minutes. Then we'll do 1 more stretch and fold, and then we're gonna leave her for a little bit. All right, it's been another 30 minutes. We're gonna do another stretch and fold. All right, we're gonna do like we did before. Fold side down. And put this back on, and then we're gonna let it proof for 3 hours on the countertop. See you in 3 hours. Okay, so after 3 hours, this is what we're looking like. So I got this cool silicone mat, so we're gonna try it out, and I'm gonna flour it, and then we're gonna roll this out, and then we're gonna punch out our English muffins. All right, so they say 1/2 inch, but let's see how thin I guess we can get this. We still want her to, you know, have a pretty good dump going on. I guess it's good. So I'm just gonna take a mason jar lid. Definitely didn't cut as good as I wanted it to. I wonder if it's the mat. It might be the mat. Don't normally have as much problem. And then I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna put it on a baking sheet that I have that has some just regular cornmeal on it. All right, we're gonna cut all these out and I'll be back. All right, so here's how many we ended up with. So I'm gonna go ahead and cover these and let them rise for about another 30 minutes. All right, here's what we're working with after we let them rise for another 30 minutes. So we're gonna take them to our cast iron. All right, so we have a well-seasoned cast iron skillet. You don't have to use cast iron if you don't want to. I like using cast iron, and this is just to essentially get the top and the bottom brown. So we're gonna do it on medium heat. Just gonna do a few at a time, and we're just gonna do 2-3 minutes and just get them nice and brown, and then we're gonna finish them off in the oven. And I've already got my oven preheated, or getting preheated to 375. All right, it's been 2 minutes, so let's see how they're doing. Not too shabby. All right, so we'll let them do another couple minutes on this side, and then we'll transfer them back to our baking sheet. All right, so now we're gonna pop those in the oven at 375 for about 10 minutes until the internal temp is 190 degrees Fahrenheit. All right, so these just came out of the oven, so let's see what their temp is. That's 194. Let's get another thick lady. 205. 210. Just for good measure, another 210. Great. So these are done. So I'm gonna keep cycling them through until we're all done. So this is how many we ended up with. They look gorgeous. I already went ahead and checked the internal temps for this, and I already cut this one in half. So let's look at her. Oh my God, so beautiful. All the nooks and crannies. All right, so I went ahead and put a little bit of butter on it, and then the apple jam that I made the other day. So let's see how it is. You gotta make these. Well, let me know if you do. And just remember, when you're off duty, have fun.